Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. So I'm going to ask a question. Think about this for a moment. What are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to life in general, your career? Let that marinate for a moment. What's your strengths? You might be surprised to find out that what you think is one of your strengths may not be. We're going to talk about that today and so much more. We'll start with an amazing life coach that helps all different types of individuals recognize their strengths and move their life forward. And that could be anybody from a C-level executive to a CEO, somebody who owns a company, or just an individual that just wants to move their life forward. Margaret Enloe joins us today on the program. How you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Nice to see you.
Good to have you here. We have a guest too. Who's with us
today? Jasmine Fries, colleague of mine. Not so much a colleague, but somebody I've come to know over the last 5 or 6 months. And Jasmine and I do some of the same things, but in a very different way, and with different people. So it's I thought it'd be fun to have Jasmine here talking about some of the same things that I work on.
Welcome, Jasmine. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm loving that we're talking about this today and starting with our strengths, right? So I took a strength assessment test recently and was very surprised what came back. So Jasmine, do you work with those type of tests?
I do use a behavioral assessment when I work with my clients. I'm a trusted advisor to CEOs and their executive teams on human capital decisions in their organization. But I want to change test language from how you speak about it, because you can't pass or fail your personality. So instead, I call it a survey.
I'm writing that down. It's what an eye opener when you really identify what makes you tick. And the test I did was the Clifford Strengths Assessment.
Clifton Strengths. Yeah.
Clifton, thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny because in this office building, there's a Clifford right next door. That's his name. So I got that locked in my brain. What came back for me, number one, was communication. All right, no brainer. That's what I've been doing forever. I get that. Number two, shocked me, empathy. And I thought it would be lower, but that was my number two strength. And I believe it's a strength and also a curse at the same time, because I give a lot of myself to others and all of that. I need to, protect some of that energy. But it was an eye opener. A lot of other things like competitiveness was low on the list. So I feel that I have to look deeper into that, because there's you can evaluate each one of the 34 strengths. But it's an eye opener for sure. What have you discovered? Even Margaret, tell us what you've discovered in a lot of this when we identify our strengths.
Yeah, well, I think, Steve, you're right that a lot of times people will take these self-assessments, and Jasmine is totally right. You can't fail a personality assessment at all. But we do all have some strengths and we all have some weaknesses. We are not necessarily all that self-aware about what these are. And as you, in taking your assessment, found out, oh, gee, I thought I'd rate lower on empathy and maybe lower on competitiveness. And maybe that was lower. I kind of forget what you said about that. But in doing these assessments, and again, they're not called tests, they're called assessments, people can become much more clued into what makes them tick, and maybe why people react to them in certain ways that surprises them. And by becoming more self-aware, it allows us to be more successful, more able to do the kinds of things that we want to do. And so it's interesting what you came up with in yours. I think I will say most of my experience, people taking the assessments that I give, and I don't give the same ones, it depends on the person. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, people are not surprised by the results. And that doesn't mean certain aspects of them are not a little like, oh, I didn't expect that. But by and large, I think my experience, I don't know if it's the same with you, Jasmine, people are not so surprised. So it's affirming of something that they thought about themselves. So that's
you know what, for me, it was a surprise, but it wasn't a surprise. And I'm usually the one that calls other people out. Hey, do you realize you're an empath? You really got to be careful. Like I had a friend who was a nurse, and she has to take every third day off because she's just drained.
Mhm.
And I said, do you realize what's going on here? Like, you're taking on their energy and everything going on that you need to recover. So I'm not surprised, but I am surprised in it. What is, when we hear this term positive intelligence, and it goes around a lot, it's been trending more frequently lately. Jasmine, what is positive intelligence?
You're putting me on the spot here. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could reference what positive intelligence is. I'm so sorry. I'm going to default
I thought that you were work in that wheelhouse. Margaret?
Yeah, it's a little bit more me. Yeah, I think it's a little
that's
more
Margaret.
Okay.
We all have assessments that we're more familiar with or less familiar with. The one you just talked about, the Clifton strengths.
Yep.
That one is one that a lot of people know. A lot of people know the Myers-Briggs. That came out probably 20 years ago. Not as much used these days. So back to your question about positive intelligence, that is an assessment that is easy for people to do online. And it tests, it assesses things like, how much of a perfectionist are you? How much do you like to control situations or people? How much are you, let's say, avoid doing things, which we often refer to as a procrastinator. So there are 9 elements that get assessed in this positive intelligence, and then it goes into thinking about what are 5 things I might do to improve upon those saboteurs. And I would just add to that, the mother of all saboteurs is the judge. And we all judge ourselves, we judge other people, we judge situations. So the positive intelligence assessments is meant to help you understand, yes, you all have at some level a judge in you. You may be not very judgmental of other people, but very judgmental of yourself. And then helps us assess other saboteurs, but then also, hey, what do we do about those things? So that's an assessment that, yes, I do with people. They find it helpful. And then I do find that over time, some of those saboteurs can weaken if they work on it some.
The judging thing is big. And I don't think we realize what's going on. Even when we look at somebody else and let's say they're from a different culture, I forget the time frame, but I think it's 1.7 seconds. We make a determination, but it's being done instinctively to protect us. So we see somebody and it's like, I don't know, they look different. Could be the most wonderful person on the planet, but we've already judged them because of the way we're bred. And I feel we need to turn that around. Of course, judging ourselves. I think that one of the most common things is most of us feel that we're not good enough. We're not good enough for whatever it is that's, sitting on top of us, limiting beliefs and all of that. Jasmine, you've worked with a lot of teams before. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and Margaret, thank you for jumping in on positive intelligence. There's so many different tools on the marketplace, but I'm an expert in Culture Index, which is the tool that I use. And so I use that to work with teams to really be a strategic business advisor to executives. So I understand what are the business goals that the company is facing, and then how can we make sure that we're making the right human capital decisions to grow and scale the business. So the way that Culture Index works is it's a 2-question assessment. You understand an individual's inherent natural strengths, and then can align that to proper job fit. So not only are we understanding who an individual is, but are they the right fit in a role to be successful? So I work with teams in a lot of different ways to address that and to help their business grow, but ultimately with that assessment as the basis.
What are some of the indicators there to determine whether somebody's a good fit for a company?
Yes, it's actually highly individualized to the company and the role. So I work with clients to answer an assessment on, in the absence of an individual, what are the different traits that would be successful or that an individual would need to be successful in this role. And so based on the way that they answer that, we'll look at, and there's a bunch of different questions and indicators that we're looking at, but it'll generate a response, and then we'll align that to candidates in the organization. Now, that is not a one size fits all. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't trap someone into a position of, I can't do this job if I don't have the right results. It just then helps us better lead, manage, motivate our teams, and build winning teams.
I I didn't even know that existed, but it makes so much sense. You know, if you're trying to fit somebody into a company, maybe their culture doesn't support, you know, what somebody's beliefs are, their talents are, and their skills. Jasmine, what have you discovered along the way in doing this index?
I think the biggest thing for me is, one, I'm incredibly passionate about helping people do something that they love each and every day. And so something that I've discovered is that people often continue to stay in a position that doesn't fully align to them. And it's such a beautiful thing when I work with companies who are helping people do something that they love. Think about writing with your dominant hand all day, every day, and then you join a new company, start a new role, and you're asked to write with your non-dominant hand every single day. Can you do it? Yeah, probably. Is it as productive, efficient? Does it look as nice as you want it to? Probably not. And so being able to align individuals with something where they're truly going to thrive and grow in the business is something that makes me feel incredibly fulfilled. And it was eye-opening to me how much of an impact the work I do could make on individuals in the company.
Wow. I think this goes right back to Margaret. When you work with people in discovering what their true purpose is, you know, so many are in jobs and positions where they're doing it, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't align with what's really inside. How do you get to the core of that?
Steve, there are a lot of people that are not happy in their jobs, and I work with quite a few of them. Because of my background as a lawyer, many of my clients are lawyers, and these are lawyers who want to maybe switch out of the law, or they want to get a different kind of job in the law. For example, I was working with a partner in a law firm who wanted to become a judge. And that's staying very much in the legal realm, but it's changing into doing it in a very different capacity. But one of the things I do with people is something called a values assessment, so that they go through maybe 30 different values or things that are important to them in a job. And then they rank them in order of importance from, let's say, 1 to 4, with 4 being, this is really important to me, like the amount of responsibility I have, the amount of autonomy I have, hybrid workspace environment comes up. So they're asked to rate those 1 to 4, as I said, and then winnow it down to 5, and then ask, which of these 5 would you be willing to give up? And which you never want to give up. And then in 20 words or more, describe the kind of job or position that you'd like to have. That's just one way of getting at it, because a lot of people, in thinking about a job or what might bring them happiness, they say, well, I want something that's challenging me, but I don't want something where I have to work for an overbearing boss. And they don't think more broadly. This values assessment that I was just talking about helps them think a little more broadly about what makes them tick, what they might enjoy. There's some other things. There are actually many other things too. But let's say hypothetically it's somebody who has really no good sense of what they want to do. They just know they're unhappy. I might say, okay, let's think about things that you might like to do and put it in the present tense. I see myself as XYZ in doing this and doing that. And again, it's the idea of helping people think broadly so that they can kind of get out of the straitjacket of, I don't like this, and move into a space of, yeah, but I would like to do this. So it really depends on where somebody is in their life, but as to what you might do with them. I talked earlier about the EQI, or emotional intelligence assessment. That would be something I might use with somebody who is basically happy in their job, but they just want to do better, or they want to get a promotion. And that goes through, actually, you talked about 2 questions, Jasmine. This one has maybe 25 questions and winnows it down to 15 categories that you get assessed in. And one might be, how optimistic are you? How flexible are you? How authoritative do you feel you are? That's probably not one of them for sure. But anyway, these 15 assessments allow somebody to say, oh, well, maybe I need to beef up how I present myself, or talk about your communication, how I communicate with people about various things. So
somebody said to me yesterday, and it was so basic, but it's exactly what we're talking about. And it was, if you could do something and not get paid, but you just want to do it, what would it be? And so basic. And I was like, wow, made me think. I've been doing
how did you answer that? How did you answer that? Did you come up with an answer?
This is it.
This is it. Well,
this is it, because, and this is how I know, I was doing this when I was 9.
Yeah.
I built a studio. I didn't have any money. I taught myself electronics so I could build a mixer, so I could make tapes up. I would steal my sister's turntable when she wasn't home, so I'd have two, get a mix. And she wasn't happy about that, but that's how everything in the studio, I built it. I could hire people to come in, wire everything. No, I did it when I was 9. I'm still doing it now. So that to me is like, this is to me fun, still doing radio and all of that.
I will just add in that regard, there are many people who don't have an idea about that. They have to think, what would I really enjoy doing that I wouldn't be paid? They don't necessarily know the answer to that.
It's so true. And I guess I'm blessed in that regard, because I don't know the other way, but I do know people, a lot of them right now, a lot of people are reassessing their lives and their careers. Somebody ended a job, wasn't happy there, somebody I know, and is trying to figure it out. And she's not really sure. And then, ideas pop up. I give her a lot of credit where the sky's the limit. It's, well, I could do this. Well, maybe I could do this, or I could do that. But you got to, figure it out. And it's not easy to figure out yourself.
Right. That's true. So, and that's where coaching can come in, because somebody who has a lot of ideas, well, that's great to have all those ideas and be open to suggestions, but there's the reality of taking some action around those ideas to hopefully land in a job that you like.
I was kind of surprised. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jasmine.
Okay, I was going to say, I think that's a good note where Margaret helps individuals take action in their own lives and for themselves. And so for where we differentiate back to what we talked about at the beginning and Margaret shared, we're in a similar realm, but ultimately different. My work is more around businesses. So think about how you use an assessment like this and think differently about what's the cost of turnover to your organization. Well, beyond that, and not a lot of organizations even have a specific dollar amount for that, what's the cost of disengagement in your organization? Employees that are still there, but not giving you everything. Or even further beyond that, what would the impact to your business be if you could duplicate your top talent? So using an assessment a little bit differently, instead of having individuals take action, how can I help businesses take action to grow and scale differently? So I appreciate you touching on that, Margaret.
I'm still intrigued about the 2 questions.
I know, they're very, very simple. I'll send it to you after this.
I've like, after doing the 34, Clifton Strengths assessment, and again, it was rapid fire. It's in 30 minutes, you're done.
Right.
The 2 questions that has me like a cliffhanger. It really is.
Margaret mentioned sharing hers on here, and I told not enough time to look at the results. While it's only 2 questions and you can get through those pretty quickly, the insights that come from it take a lot longer to digest. So
interesting.
It was fun to do that with you.
What types of companies do you work with, Jasmine?
Yeah, sweet spot for me is companies that range from 25 to 250, 300 employees, have worked with smaller, can work with much larger, industry agnostic. So kind of cover the board for different companies. Anyone that employs people can benefit from making better human capital decisions.
You bring up some really great points that I think a lot of employers or managers don't realize, but the people that are just phoning it in, the quiet quitters, more in terms of productivity, they're not happy. They're just, floating along there, wait until they have the courage to make a change, or if something else that just comes their way, but there's dollars being lost there alone. Margaret, let's go back to finding your purpose. I think I never thought we were going in this direction here with these assessments, but essentially it's kind of what it's coming down to.
Yeah. Finding purpose is important. But again, I do come back to, hey, a lot of people will have a general sense of my purpose. Hey, if they have a family, is to take care of my family. And, but beyond that, sometimes people, as I said earlier, they struggle. And they don't want to say things. They rarely say things like, oh, I just want to have fun. If a person says, I just want to have fun, they might discount that as being, hey, that's too egocentric.
Yep.
But I think it's it's helpful to people if you can tell them, hey, if you don't have a purpose that comes like with flashing lights all around, it's okay. Life is made up of many, many things. And maybe we could approach this from the standpoint, what are a few things that are important to you in life right now? And that makes it feel less like, oh, I should have some passion. I should have some purpose. So, as I say, some people definitely have a purpose. They may not have a passion like you did with your radio work, and that's okay. People can start where it makes sense for them to start in terms of developing some clear ideas about what's important to them.
Do you feel that somebody could have a job, and if they just maybe pivoted over here or over here, just tweaked it a little bit, that it could be the perfect job, but they might not realize it?
It could be the perfect job. But you know what? Like some people say, hey, work is work. They call it work because it's work. It's not necessarily fun and something you're going to feel so great waking up in the morning. One of the questions I do ask people who are going to become a client, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? And I rarely get a response that I feel great, eager to go, can't wait. I feel okay. Some days I feel kind of anxious. And so I mean, I loved my job when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, in-house attorney and partner of the firm. I loved that job. I thought it was great. That does not mean that when I woke up every morning, I didn't feel like, oh, what's on my plate today? And go in sometimes feeling a little more lighthearted, sometimes a little more, oh, this is going to be a tough day, worried about certain things. So having a good job, one that you basically enjoy, is a great thing. But the people who love it 100% of the time, I would do this whether I was paid or not, I think they're not too many of those people.
One thing I've learned in my life, everything is work. Everything is work. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Making plans for the weekend. You want to get together with your friends. You got maybe 4 or 5 friends. Where are we going to meet? Who's driving? What are we going to do? There's work involved in that. Even in meditation, there's a thing called breath work. It's breathing, but it's work. It's because it's anything that's intentional is work. So, breath work in yoga, you're intending to breathe a certain way. It's work. You gotta.
But I would say, Steve, having said that, the more, and Jasmine, I would imagine you find this, the more you can help people feel or sense either some sense of optimism, some sense of this could be fun. This is a story around this that I'm interested in developing or finding out about or researching, then the work part of it becomes less like, it feels like work, and more like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Even taking action around people's goals. Well, if they delineate those action steps and they don't become this monumental burden that they have to somehow get over, but rather discrete steps that they can do those things, then you put it at a level where they can move forward with getting to something that maybe is fun for them or just is enjoyable or makes them feel fulfilled in some way.
Do you find, Jasmine, we're just about out of time, but I'm curious here. Do you find that more times somebody is a good fit in a role or a company, or the other way around?
I think it first goes back to, are we leading, managing, motivating this person most effectively to start? So whether good fit, bad fit, if they're not being led accordingly and they don't actually understand how the role is defined, we got to start there.
It sounds like it's a wake up call for everybody, the employer, the employees, all of them, with these assessments.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're out of time. Margaret, how does somebody find you if they want to connect with you, maybe find their purpose, find their perfect job, or just kind of figure all this stuff out?
Sure. People can find me on my website, which is margaretenloe.com, or on LinkedIn, which is under my name, Margaret Enloe. There's another Margaret Enloe there, but I'm the Margaret Enloe that
There's only one. There's only one.
There's only one, right? And Jasmine, how about you? Where can we find you?
You can also find me on LinkedIn at my name, which check the spelling because it's a little bit unique and I think different than Margaret, excuse me. You're not going to find another Jasmine Freeze on LinkedIn. I think I'm one of one. So.
from your spelling of your first name with a Z in there and the Y to the last name with an S and a Z, I'm going to say it: JAZMYNFRIESZ. I don't know what your parents were thinking, but they were making sure that there's only one.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you both for being here today. Learned a lot about what goes on behind the scenes and how we connect with jobs and our purpose and the right fit, and appreciate it.
All right, Steve. Nice spending time with you.
Same. Thanks a lot. We'll be right back.
Jasmine.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.